Welcome everyone to the Fourth Taviran podcast. We will be reviewing episode 8 of season 1 of Amazon Prime's The Wheel of Time. We'll be talking more about that and breaking it down and kind of giving what our opinions are, what we thought about that, how it maybe compares to the book, and which we thought was better. But for now, this episode, we have myself, Justin, I'll be your host, along with our other Taviran, Kyle.
Hey, everybody.
Anyways, welcome to the Fourth Taviran podcast, a family-friendly review show, commentary, and all that stuff about Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. And when the series was first announced, you know, we've talked about it in the past for quite some time that we were super excited, glad it was coming to the small screen, I guess, and that it was going to be a streaming series. And as the show has come out, we've liked some things, not liked other things. I feel like we've been fair as far as our criticism. We've talked about and lauded the things that we enjoy, and we think that the show is doing really well with. But we've also pointed out the things that we don't like, as well as, you know, other people from what we've heard. So for you, Kyle, we're at the end of this journey for season 1, episode 8. How do you think it's been going so far, all the way up to this point, to this episode?
Well, as we've talked in previous podcasts, there are definitely some things that I've liked, specifically around the cinematography, the special effects, and it's beautiful, beautiful sets, fantastic special effects, and it's fun to watch, right? It's a great demonstration of what's capable nowadays. That being said, I think they made a lot of unnecessary changes, and I mean we've touched on that in previous episodes. And does that make it so that I don't want to watch it anymore? No. I think there's a lot of people who do like it, and I think that's great. But as an avid fan of the books, it's tough for me to really jump on the horse and get excited about this. And so. Up to this point, I'd say I'm a solid middle of the roader with a little disappointment.
Okay. Yeah, I feel pretty similar, in the middle. Some things I love, some things I'm like, why did they do that? Or why didn't they add this scene, or, stuff like that. One thing I do enjoy, and we brought it up throughout these review episodes, is usually this cold opening they have, at least the last couple. They do show kind of some, I don't know if it's behind the scenes, but stuff that happened off screen in the books, And for this episode, it starts off in the past, 3,000 years ago, as far as this current part of the story is, where it's at. 3,000 years prior, the breaking of the world happened, so we get some lead up to that, because that's always a main topic in the books, is the breaking of the world, especially in the first couple of books. And we see Lews Therin Talamon and the Tamerlane seat, Latra Posea Decume. I hope I'm saying that right. And they're talking about how to seal up the bore. The Dark One's breaking free due to past stuff. They found a weak point in this thing, and they were wondering what it is, so they opened it up, and it was the Dark One's prison. And so they're like, oh crap, we gotta fix this. So they're attempting to seal it up to prevent the Dark One from breaking free. And so these two are the main Aes Sedai in charge, and they're initially speaking in the old tongue. It's being translated for us, and they're talking just how to go about it. And while I really enjoyed seeing this behind the scenes stuff, I had some hang-ups with it, because it was pretty blatant changes that didn't necessarily need to happen. For example, Lews Therin, he's the Tamerlane seat. That's his title. So I'm not sure why they're calling this female Aes Sedai the Tamerlane seat. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. But they're already talking about how saidin, the male half of the source, has been corrupted, and the women have to pick up the pieces without the male Aes Sedai. And then she calls him the Dragon Reborn. And, so just things like that I don't know why they made those changes. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
Yeah, similarly, I love the look into the past of the Age of Legends, right? That was fantastic, and you see the advanced technology and the beautiful scenery and the things that you would expect in a very advanced age. But I mean, again, this scene was rife with unnecessary changes, right? And it it distracts from, I think, the overall story points. For example, Luz Theron's title is different, right? And I can live with that. That's
Right.
not a big deal. But for me, how they're already talking about Siding being corrupted. Nobody had any idea that Siding was going to be corrupted, right? If Luz Theron and the Hundred Companions went and sealed the bore, right? That was
Mm-hmm.
an unfortunate side effect.
Yeah,
But the
that's a
fact
good
that they're
point.
speaking about it like it's already happened, I mean, that's,
Yeah,
again, an unnecessary change.
yeah. Well, it breaks down the sequence of events, which I think is very particular, was very well thought out and organized by Robert Jordan in the books, and there's a reason for it, right?
Yep.
So, and the you bring up a good point in the sense that they they hadn't even tried to seal up the bore yet, and the tainting of Saidin was the Dark One reaching out to try and stop it from happening. So I don't know. It just doesn't add up.
No. No.
And
And
this
it's just
is go ahead.
uh, there are things that like this, right? That to really just throw off the order and kind of the sequence of events that Robert Jordan has laid out that are going to be tough to recover from later on. I think,
Yeah,
depending on how which way they take the story. So
yeah. And I think that's one of the themes of this episode that we have. Just why are things out of order? Why do they need to be? And it's going to be tough to recover from. Rafe Judkins wrote this episode. Supposedly he's a super fan. Read the books many times. This is his baby. Um, but he's the one that made all these changes. Him and the writers, right? He's ultimately the one that decides what's shot, what's written, and what's shot, and all that stuff. So that blows my mind too, because in his Q&As, his comments that he makes regarding the story, he does have a really good knowledge of the story and the ins and outs. But then we get stuff like this, and it doesn't add up. And we've said many
yeah,
times in this show, the details matter. These small details, in and of himself, it was just one thing here, one thing there. Okay, whatever. That's how television shows are when they adapt the books. But there's pretty consistent changes throughout that just kind of add up as we go along. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, you take other adaptations from books like, and I know everybody uses this as a model, but like the Lord of the Rings, right? And quite frankly, Peter Jackson, yeah, he changed and eliminated a couple things, but he stuck pretty true to the story,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And I think there's a reason why Lord of the Rings was so successful, right? Both from a book perspective and a film perspective, is because they stuck to Tolkien's theology and his book
mm-hmm.
for the most part. So, anyways, I
Yeah,
think there's opportunity for improvement. So,
yeah. Okay. So we left off, or we start where we left off with the last episode. Rand and Moraine had left Fal Dara and gone into the Blight by themselves to try and find the eye of the world. The plot point up to this point was whoever goes with Moraine is going to die, and one of these Emmenfielders is the Dragon Reborn. We don't know which one. And at the end of the last um, episode, Rand realizes, oh, it's him. So Moraine and Rand take off on their own in the dark, and they go off into the Blight. And as they're going along, they're talking. Don't touch anything. They see some dead Borderlanders who've ventured off. That was one of the things that the Borderlanders do. That's from the book, so great, good job, Rafe. But they go off and try to prove themselves, and kill some Trollocs and become a man, I guess, some type of initiatory ceremony or something. Some of them don't come back, and so we see that, which is great. But they get tired, they go to sleep. Rand has this dream where he wakes up in the dream and he's telling Moraine, hey, the Dark One knows where we are, we got to get going. And then all of a sudden Balzamun's there and he stabs Moraine and then starts talking to Rand. And Balzamun tells him he looks like Lews Therin, and Rand doesn't know what he's talking about. And so Balzamun talks to him like he's Lews Therin, like they're, they are old friends. They've been friends for quite some time. So he talks to him like that, and Rand's kind of confused. But they talk about the 100 Companions and all this stuff. But then Rand starts to realize it's a dream, and he stabs himself with the sword, and then wakes up. Do you think that's a little bit of Teleron Rioid there, or is it just a dream?
I don't know that it's Teleron Rioid. I think it's just. I think it's within Rand's dream, right?
Okay.
And so, because inside of Teleron Riyadh, you have the ability to enter people's dreams, right? But it's, I don't want to say separate from Teleron Riyadh. It's not the actual physical place, though, right?
Right.
And so I think Balzamun, right, is using methodologies to enter Rand's dream. I don't think we're quite at Teleron Riyadh yet.
Okay.
In my opinion.
All right. So he wakes up, and Rand won't tell her what he dreams about. He's stubborn.
Right.
So then Moraine shows him the sangreal that she carries of the little fat man, and he tells her how it amplifies the power. So we kind of get a lesson on how sangreal work. And she says, you're probably going to have to use it to defeat the Dark One and put him back in his prison. So they continue on. He asked her to teach her to channel. He asked her to teach him to channel. And then we realize, I don't know if this is the first time we hear it, but how female Aes Sedai can't teach male Aes Sedai how to channel, and vice versa, because they're two different things. There's a difference between the men, difference between the women, and how they access the power. And she talks about how when she was a novice at the White Tower, she wanted to learn more how to use the power, and there was this Aes Sedai that would come to her room and just beat her with lashes of air and fire because she was having trouble channeling. And they wouldn't stop until it incensed Moraine enough that she was able to grasp the power and stop this Aes Sedai from beating her up every night. And in the story, that's Elida. In the story we've met her by now, but in the show we haven't. So I think that's why they didn't name her. So she relates to Rand. Hey, there's gonna come a time when you think you're gonna die, and you're gonna reach out and grab the power, and you'll be able to save us. So I don't know. What do you think of that plan, that great plan that Moraine has? That you'll figure it out when the time comes.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where she's coming from, right? I understand. I'm trying to pull myself away from the books and put myself in the episode here, right?
Okay.
I understand where she's coming from. I mean, again, she can't really teach him how to channel, right? And so the best she can do is relate, an experience that she had that forced her to learn, essentially, or forced her to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And Rand, and hope that Rand would be able to grasp similarly, right? And so, and obviously that's not really how it happens in the books at all, but still, I mean, putting yourself in the position of thinking about, trying to, speak to somebody in a different language, right? You have to find common ground somewhere. And that common ground to Moraine happened to be what finally got her over her, I don't want to say block, but her inability to channel
Yeah.
in the episode, in the movies or the TV show.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of use your own experiences to teach what you hopefully comes across in a way that he can do it as well. Okay.
Hmm.
So they keep going, and they end up coming to this big hole, and it's the eye of the world, and there's some stairs leading down. It looks like it's an old structure, one of the structures from the Age of Legends, maybe, and they end up going down there to the bottom. And at the bottom, Rand starts to remember, since he's the Dragon Reborn, he starts to access some of the dragon's memories, I guess, Lews Therin's memories. And so he starts to look around, and he sees how it used to look before it was destroyed. We see the symbol of the Aes Sedai on the bottom, the dragon's fang, and the Aes Sedai, the flame of the Aes Sedai. And so he remembers that he fought someone there that was the Dark One. And so he starts to have all these memories coming back. And then he touches that symbol, and then he's in this alternate reality, I'm assuming, or some type of vision. And he's back in the Two Rivers with Egwene, and they have a baby, Hoya. And that's, when the show first started, that's kind of the life that he envisioned for himself. Because he would be with Egwene, they'd raise their family in the Two Rivers, and so this is kind of an extension of that. And so he's having this vision, and he's happy, and that sort of thing. And then back in reality, Moraine's trying to wake him up, and she's unsuccessful. And that's when Balzaman shows up and tries to kill. Moraine tries to kill him with the power, but he stops the attack and then shields Moraine so she can't touch the power. For you, Kyle, was this part makes sense if you're looking at it from the goggles of the show, like you said, not bringing in the book? Did this story kind of make sense for you?
Kind of, right? I think it's a good way to kind of demonstrate, perhaps the shortcomings of the previous dragons, right? In that the previous dragons and the false dragons were, very, I don't want to say prideful, but very wanting. They wanted power. They wanted to be all powerful, right? And I think the point they're trying to get across is Rand almost kind of submits to this vision that it's not what everybody in that vision, for example, Egwene would want, right? And ultimately, that's what succeeds in him, not succumbing to the Dark One's power, not succumbing to Baalzaman's, influence, and ultimately, summoning saidin and banishing Baalzaman, like we'll talk about here in a minute, right?
Yeah.
But thinking about it through the lens of the show, right? It's almost an illustration of unselfishness that allows him to overcome the Dark One's influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess if I'm trying to make sense of the scene with my book complaints aside, I guess that's kind of how I would see it.
Yeah. Okay. I think it does make sense. It's in the context of the story. This is not how it went down in the book. And so I, like you have to divorce that idea. Like, okay, this is different. This is Rafe Judkins' Wheel of Time. And as far as that story, it follows a storyline, a thread. It makes sense. He's the chosen one. He's got to choose between, joining the fight, defeating the Dark One, or just, giving up all that and doing what he wants, what he selfishly wants. So I thought it was a good visual of him trying to do that. So in this later on in this vision, there he's talking with Egwene, and Balsamon, like everything freezes, and Balsamon shows up. He's like, "Hey, you can use the power to make this world a reality for you." And he kind of shows him how to use the power a little bit, and he tells him, "I can teach you more." So that's intriguing for him. That's what he wants. You know, he can't get that from Moraine, but he can get that from Balsamon. And how he shows him how he can, you know, he slices Egwene's throat a little bit and then heals it. And so he's like, Rand asks him to teach him. And so he shows him, and then he's able to tap into the power at that point on his own. And then he remembers he has that the Sangreal that Moraine gave him, and he's able to draw in more power and able to use it to destroy Balsamon. And then he's able to wake up from his dream. When he wakes up, that Aes Sedai symbol on the floor is cracked. It's all broken up. And then we later find out that that's Quendiar. That's one of the seals of the Dark. I don't know if it's the seal or one of the seals, but it's, you know, a seal of the Dark One's prison. So, and nothing can break Quendiar, but it did. So that's kind of the main storyline with Rand. And then we got these other, you know, his friends back at Fal Dara. You know, the Trollocs are attacking Fal Dara, so the armies go out to Tarwin's Gap to try and, you know, stop him, slow him down, all that stuff. And the main guy, what's the leader's name of the Shanaioran?
Agelmar.
Yeah, Lord Agelmar goes out there to fight. And at Tarwin's Gap, they're defeated. There's too many Trollocs, and they're killed. A lot of them are killed. And so they break through Tarwin's Gap. They're coming to attack Fal Dara. And the last line of defense, basically, is these 4 untrained women who can tap into the power. They're not Aes Sedai. I think, well, maybe the one was...
Lady Annalisa, she was minorly trained, right? But she wasn't powerful enough to become an Aes Sedai.
Right.
But she was at the tower briefly.
Okay, so she's not officially... Maybe she was accepted, but not Aes Sedai.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because I think she had a ring.
Yeah. And so
they were...
But yes, it's Annalisa. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Yeah, so Annalisa, Egwene, Nynaeve, and then another lady. Was there just 4 or was there 5?
I think there was just 4.
Yeah. And so they're calling down lightning. They're using the power to, you know, use lightning and all these things to destroy the Trollocs, which was pretty cool. Pretty cool sequence. I liked seeing that. But, you know, that's a lot of power. And they were linked. The one lady showed them how to link, so they were able to do that and draw even more power. And as they did so, some of them burned out and died because it was just so much power that they were accessing. And Nynaeve, she starts to draw in too much power, and she stops Egwene. She kind of prevents her from getting too much power, so she's able to live. And then we think Nynaeve's dead, but then at the end she's not. She's able to be healed and brought back. So, and for me that part was a little inconsistent, because we saw a couple episodes ago when they were trying to get Logain under control, and he kind of escaped and killed pretty much everybody in the room. Then Nynaeve runs in and heals everybody. So she's got this amazing amount of power, is able to channel it pretty well, but yet here she's not powerful enough, and she's the one that needs healing. So I don't know. It seemed inconsistent to me.
Yeah, me too. That was, and again, divorcing myself from the book, because no way would they even understand how to link nor heal to that degree at this stage in the books, right? But you know, with the stage that they set in the previous episode, like you mentioned, Nynaeve was dead. right? Nynaeve was dead. She had been burned out,
Yeah.
and Egwene's not going to be able to heal that, right?
Yeah, she doesn't know.
Yeah, she doesn't know how to heal very well right now. She hasn't trained with the power, and two, you can't heal dead, and so that was agreed, that was a bit inconsistent. But like you said, the visual effects in this scene are my favorite in the whole series. I mean, just astoundingly awesome. I love the battle sequences and having them, strike the Trollocs with lightning, with all sorts of weather effects is fantastic. I loved it.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Um, I so they have the talent, they got the budget, they got the ideas. So I'm hoping as the series goes on, it gets better. As far as following the story instead of making up their own story. But anyway, we've talked about that. So while that's all going on, Perrin and some of the Shannarans, Uno, who else is there? Loial is there.
Loial's there.
They're kind of defending the castle and making sure that nothing happens to it. So it's Lord Yakota, Lord Yakota, and Uno, and Perrin and Loial come upon them in the throne room, and they're trying to dig something up, pull something out that's hidden under the throne. And as they do that, they pull out a big box. They open up the big box, and inside is a horn, and it's the Horn of Valere. And the horn is to be blown at the last battle to call the heroes of the horn, all the great heroes in the history of the world. This horn has the power and the ability to call them forth from the grave for a task to help defend something. And so they're going to use that because everyone thinks that this is the last battle. Like, this is the end. They've been waiting for it. They're going to defeat the Dark Ones, so they're going to use the horn if they need to. But Padan Fain, he's in town, and he's been hiding out, and he's able to infiltrate the tower, or this throne room, this castle, along with 2 Myrddraal. So he's able to control Myrddraal, which is pretty cool. I liked that. And then they infiltrate the palace, find the throne room, kill everyone there except for Perrin, sorry. And he takes the horn and escapes. So Loial is killed, which was, I don't know, that was a surprise.
Like, what?
Yeah, along with Uno. Uno's
Also, what?
someone that lasts, I don't know, several books. Is a good character on top of that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, this part, I was in disbelief. It's like, why are you killing Loial and Uno? Is it a trick? Is it, like Nynaeve? When she died, you're like, that's not going to stick. That's not going to stay. She's going to come back somehow. And she did. So is this kind of a Loial? We think he's dead, but he's not.
Maybe. To think about it, in the books, Loial, does he really have any major tangible effect? And you could argue, and you and I have chatted about this before, Justin, but you could argue maybe not, right? But it's Loial, right?
Yeah.
So why are you killing off Loial? All in the same breath, though. I mean, again, divorcing myself from the books, I honestly don't know how they continue with all this. I mean, Padan Fain already has Matt's dagger, right? Which is also inconsistent. Matt's not even there, which is also totally inconsistent, right? Yeah. And so I'd be curious what plans they have for Matt, but they've got to find a way to bring Loial back somehow. Uno, I mean, I can understand if Uno stays dead. It's right. Stupid, but I can understand that. But Loial, in my opinion, is still a major character in the book. in the series, quite frankly. He's got to be able to come back somehow, and maybe there's this magic resurrection thing, like just what just happened to Nynaeve, but um, that's also interesting. And then the fact that the Horn of Valere was in the throne room is also kind of bizarre, right? I mean, why wouldn't Agelmar have just
Yeah.
why is it in the throne room, right? Why is that not like at the White Tower or somewhere else, right? That's far more secure than in a city by the by the Blight, right?
Yeah. Right. And why didn't he
So
use
I
it
don't know.
in this? If they thought this
Why
was the
didn't
last battle, why didn't he pull it out and all right, we're winning this one. We got the heroes of the Horn with us. You know.
right, right, exactly. So again, I mean, plagued by inconsistencies, in my opinion. It's if you're going to tell a different story, then tell a good different story, right?
Yeah.
Tell a consistent different story. And so
Okay. All right. So we do to wrap it up. We have Rand wakes up from his experience after killing Baal Zaman. Hopefully he's not dead either. I guess he comes back in a different form, but
yeah,
so he wakes up and he's like, I can't be here. I need to leave. And that's one of the things. It was weird in this situation, but in the book it still happens. It's just in a different place. Like Rand feels that in the book they come back from the Eye of the World with all the stuff, the horn, the banner, all that, and he's training with Lan. And Lan, he tells Lan, "Hey, I gotta leave. I don't belong here. I'm a danger to everyone." So that part is from the book is there. It's just in a different place, and so I didn't have a problem necessarily with that, just how it happened. So he leaves. Lan shows up to Moraine. Moraine's been stilled. Apparently, she can't use the one power at this point. Was she stilled or just shielded by?
no, she said she was still she was
Yeah.
cut off. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. And then we also see Egwene uses the power to bring back Nynaeve, and then Matt. We have he's coming up to Shadar Logoth. He went back to Shadar Logoth. I'm assuming to find another dagger or something, and so that kind of shows us he's still alive. He's still involved somehow. And then there's an epilogue where we're shown the far western shore. They don't say like a city name, but it's got to be Falm, unless they're changing that too. And it's on the beach. There's a little girl playing on the sand in the beach all by herself. You know, this like 6-year-old girl, 8-year-old girl, just out in the middle of nowhere, playing on the beach. And she sees some ships out in the water. We get a close up of the ships, and it's the Shan-Chan, and we see the Koran, which is the Return. We see some Daman and Suldam, but they don't have any silver leashes or anything, and they can use the power. So they do that to create this huge tidal wave to send it to the shore, and crash it on the shore that this little girl is hanging out on by herself. So apparently she dies. We don't see it, but there's no way she can escape that big wave in enough time and all that stuff. So, and then that's the end of the episode, end of the season. Any thoughts on how it's wrapped up, how we're left with seeing the Shan-Chan and what that's all about?
I liked most of what I saw with the Shan-Chan. Yeah, the silver leashes aren't, or the chains aren't there, but it did show that the Suldam and Damani were connected somehow, right? So, and as we know in the books, the leash doesn't, or the chain doesn't necessarily have to be present for the connection to be enforced, and so. I liked that. I liked the wave special effect. The one thing I thought was missing is in the book they have all the warriors, they have locust armor, right? Bugs. They all look like bugs, right? So I didn't really see any of that in the epilogue there. And so to me, that's not a huge deal, but it kind of plays into their overall battle strategies that we'll see later in the books, or and maybe in the show. But
Yeah, maybe.
as far as how it wrapped up, I mean, it's very different. It's a totally different story, right?
Yeah.
And I again, I wish they wouldn't have changed so much, but I'm trying to watch it for what it is, and experience the I guess their vision, and so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And we've talked about it, in order to enjoy this show, which we've been looking to for not only since we first started reading the books, hoping they'd make a show, but when they announced the show like 2-3 years ago. So we've been looking to it for a while. We've had expectations, and we've talked about, hey, if we're going to like this, we got to accept it for what it is. There's going to be comparisons. That's just inevitable. If you haven't read the books, maybe you're enjoying the show that much more. So good for you. I'm glad it's working for you. And like we said, it mostly works for us. Just have a lot of hiccups, a lot of, like, I think one of our first episodes we talked about how, we're going to therapy when we talk about these shows, because we got a lot of angst, a lot of issues we got to work out from previous expectations. And so this podcast helps us do that. Ultimately, I think we like the show. Our expectations are different and have been different. So we have to adjust to that. And I think for me anyway, I'm getting there. It's a process, but we'll get there. A lot of it's going to depend how season 2 plays out, how they tie that in, because they missed a lot of stuff in this first season. I mean, like we said, they didn't go to Camelin. We haven't seen Elaine, and I know they've cast Elaine for season 2, so we're going to get it. But a lot of stuff that they skipped over. So to tie that in with all the stuff that happens in books 2, books 3, how are they going to do that? We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, just to add on to what Justin said, if you haven't read the books, read the books.
Yeah, definitely read it.
Read the book. The books are so much better.
Yeah. I did a reread of book 1 about a month ago, and I was just so happy reading the books. I was just like, oh, this part is so good. Why wasn't it in the show? Just the whole Matt and Rand on the road to Camelin after Shadar Logoth. It's so good. It's so good. Just their relationship. You really see how that's developed and how that carries on for the rest of the 14 book series. Right? That bond is formed. They were friends before. They were just kind of goofballs. But in this journey, they bond. They have each other's back, and it's strong. Because Rand turns into a jerk. Matt's just out for his own thing. But because of this bond that they formed, it weathers that. And so there's just moments like that. It's so good. And we didn't get to see that in the show, unfortunately.
Well, that's just a testament to Robert Jordan's storytelling ability. I mean,
oh, yeah.
he put together an amazing, comprehensive, coherent, and very popular bestseller story, right? This has been top of the line high fantasy book for multiple decades, right? Yeah. And there's a reason it was. And I get if you want to build a show that's different, but be clear that it's different, right? It's not the Wheel of Time. It's something else. And so if you haven't read the books, yeah, you go read the books. You're in for a real treat. It's the character development is so much better. The story is far more coherent, and it's enjoyable. I mean, it's worth sitting down and doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll take a couple months. Well, probably like 6-7 months to read them all, but
yeah,
it's good. Maybe 9 months. So speaking of the books, we will get back to finishing up our chapter by chapter review of The Eye of the World, book 1. That's our next Fourth Taviran podcast episode will be The Eye of the World, chapters 45 through 49, I believe. And then the next episode after that will wrap up The Eye of the World and kind of give a recap as well. So stay tuned for those upcoming episodes where we talk about the book. And at this point, there's going to be, like right now, we're comparing the show to the books. So there's going to be some comparison of the books to the show in those final those final chapters that we're going to review, I'm sure. So stay tuned for that, because that'll be an interesting way to juxtapose those two experiences, right? Because up until now we've been like, well, in the books it happens this way, and then in these reviews we'll be like, well, that didn't happen in the movie. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, thanks for watching this episode of the Fourth Taviran podcast as we talk about Wheel of Time season 1 episode 8. And definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. That helps us out, supports us in a way that is free, right? It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, and it benefits us, and we'll make more and more content and get better as we go along. So thank you in advance to subscribing to our channel. Definitely comment on this episode, what you thought, what we said, what your thoughts are on the episode, and we'll respond and just kind of have a conversation that way. So thanks again for watching, and may you find water and shade.
Bye, everybody.